CATL just confirmed the full numbers behind its new sodium-ion battery, and most people scrolled right past the most important battery announcement of the decade. Forget the wild 90% cheaper headlines. That part isn't true. But what's actually been confirmed could quietly mark the beginning of the end for lithium iron phosphate as we know it. And once you stack it against where battery tech really sits in 2026, you'll see why every electric car you'll ever buy might get cheaper because of this. The price reset nobody saw coming. Let's start with price, because that's the first thing everyone wants to know. CATL says its next-generation sodium-ion cell currently sits at around $19 per kilowatt-hour at the cell level. Now hold that number in your head, because you need a baseline to understand how shocking it is. Today's best lithium iron phosphate cells, the kind sitting inside a BYD, a Tesla, or an MG, generally land somewhere around $52 to $60 per kilowatt hour at large production scale. So no, sodium isn't suddenly 90% cheaper. But it is roughly 65% cheaper than the cheapest mainstream chemistry we have, and that is an enormous gap by any honest measure. And here's the part that should make you sit up. CATL believes that figure could fall to around $10 per kilowatt hour within the next 3 or 4 years as production ramps. That's not marketing fluff from a startup chasing headlines. This is the company supplying Mercedes, BMW, and Tesla in China, a manufacturer that's accurate the overwhelming majority of the time when it commits to a public number. When a player that size puts a figure on the table, the rest of the industry has to listen. A lifespan that breaks the spreadsheet. Price isn't even the most fascinating part of this story. The detail that genuinely stopped me was longevity. CATL claims this sodium-ion cell can deliver somewhere between high nickel NMC chemistry still towers above at 265. But sodium has crossed the line from useless to genuinely usable, and it does so while being cheaper, dramatically safer, and almost unbothered by the cold. This chemistry operates from minus 40 degrees Celsius all the way up to 70, holding its charging performance in deep winter where lithium packs visibly struggle. For anyone living somewhere genuinely freezing, that single trait alone is a game changer. Where the rest of the battery world actually stands. So, how does this stack up against everything else being developed right now? This is where the 2026 picture gets really interesting. Lithium iron phosphate hasn't stood still. It's now the dominant chemistry for affordable EVs worldwide, with pack prices that hit record lows in 2025, and it remains the safe, sensible workhorse. NMC and its high-nickel cousins still rule the premium long-range segment thanks to that 265 watt-hour density. And then there's the technology everyone keeps waiting for: solid state. The promise there is spectacular, with energy densities that could reach 300 to 500 watt-hours per kilo and the holy grail of a battery that won't catch fire even when punctured. But here's the reality nobody wants to say out loud. Solid state currently costs around 8 times more to produce. The manufacturing is brutally difficult, and outside of a handful of expensive Halo models and pilot lines, it simply isn't in showrooms. Most analysts don't expect mainstream availability before 2028 to 2030. So while everyone's eyes are fixed on the distant solid-state finish line, sodium just quietly walked onto the field, ready to mass produce right now. The hybrid trick that scales it overnight. There was another detail CATL slipped in quietly that I think is far more important than it first appears. The bigger picture. Even at the pack level, sodium is built from materials that exist almost everywhere on Earth: sodium, aluminum, and carbon, rather than the geographically concentrated, politically tangled supply chains that lithium depends on. That's not just a cost story, it's an energy independence story. And those same cheap, long-life cells aren't only headed for cars. They're being aimed squarely at solar storage, microgrids, and massive grid projects, because when storage suddenly costs half as much and lasts several times longer, coal, gas, and even nuclear start looking far less competitive in a lot of situations. The moment lithium started to lose its grip. So where does all this leave us? Industry experts expect sodium to push past 200, even 210 watt-hours per kilo within about 5 years, which would erase its last real disadvantage against affordable lithium chemistry. And let's kill one tired myth right here. Sodium isn't the salt on your kitchen table, it's an abundant element found practically everywhere, and that abundance is the entire point. CATL itself describes the future as a dual-star approach, where sodium and lithium coexist rather than one wiping out the other. Personally, I don't think lithium iron phosphate vanishes. The highest energy, longest range cars will keep leaning on lithium and NMC for years. But I genuinely believe this is one of those quiet turning points we'll look back on. Years from now, when cheap, long-lasting batteries are simply normal, people may point to this exact window, 2025 into 2026, and say that was the moment lithium's total dominance began to crack. Not vanish, crack. And once a crack like that opens in a market this enormous, it rarely closes again. So what do you think? Could sodium eventually replace lithium iron phosphate, or will the two chemistries coexist for another 10 or 20 years? I'd genuinely love to hear where you land on this, so drop your thoughts down in the comments below, because honestly, this is one of the most fascinating battery stories